these beautiful, majestic animals. The Yellowstone buffalo, a few years ago, ran away 10 days before a magnitude 4.8 quake struck. And people are wondering, can they really foretell earthquakes? Well, we have a lot of animals that can foretell earthquakes. They can hear frequencies that humans cannot hear. They can perhaps feel it through their bodies because they're always out in the open. And perhaps even taste the difference in the water, in the vegetation, from the, for example, the release of helium gas in the area of Yellowstone or other volcanic gases because of their sense of smell. I wouldn't be surprised. The thing is that they did run off 10 days before the earthquake. We have dogs that sense earthquakes. We have cats that sense the earthquake. The dogs, for example, start howling to their masters and pulling them by their clothes out of the house just before earthquakes strike. We've seen a lot of that happening in Greece. Cats, for example, when they feel an earthquake coming, they run into a spot that they can shelter themselves. And we've also seen that with reptiles, for example, with snakes. When snakes feel an earthquake days before, they come out of the ground and they climb onto the houses and the roof of the houses. So, what can I tell you? Even birds. So, I wouldn't be surprised. I believe that they would be able to feel earthquakes. So, this, of course, was a couple of years ago, in March of 20th. Somebody posted this, a video concerning the buffalo running off. And 10 days later, the 4.8 magnitude hit. And that was a video that we all remember, it went viral. Now, how many buffaloes are there? What is this story with the buffalo in Yellowstone? I've never been to Yellowstone. I think the only time I may have seen a buffalo would have been in the Bronx Zoo in New York. A beautiful zoo, by the way. So, what is the bison? What are their numbers? What's going on with them there? It's the largest public bison herd in the United States. Yellowstone, as we know, is known for its geothermal activity and large mammals, especially the elk, the wolves, the bison, the bears, the pronghorns, the moose, the bighorn sheep. Yellowstone Park bison herd was estimated in 2015 to be around 4,900 bison. The bison in the Yellowstone Park bison herd are American bison of the plains bison subspecies. I'm reading this from Wikipedia, by the way. Now, Yellowstone National Park may be the only location in the United States where free-ranging bison were never extirpated, since they continue to exist in the wild and were not reintroduced. So this was their original location, and has been done in most other, as has been done in most other bison herds. Other large free-ranging, publicly controlled herds of bison in the United States include the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve in Kansas, about 2,100 to 2,600 animals. The Wind Cave Bison, about 350 animals, that's all. The Antelope Island Bison Herd, about 550 to 700 animals. Henry Herd Bison in Utah, about 400 to 500 animals. And the National Bison Range Herd in Flathead Lake, Montana, which is about 400. So you see that their numbers are very, very small. So the Yellowstone Park bison herd is divided into two subgroups, mostly isolated from each other. The Northern Range herd numbers about 2,300, and the near Gardner, Montana, through the Blacktail Plateau into the Lamar Valley. The Central Interior herd, which numbers about 1,400 individuals, ranges from Madison River Valley into the Hayden Valley, Upper and Lower Geyser basins. Now, the history. The bison were numbered once in the millions. As we know, the Native American Indians used everything from them. Their hides, their meat, of course. They were perhaps between 25 million and 60 million by some estimates. They were possibly the most numerous large land animal on Earth. But in the late 1880s, they had been hunted to near extinction throughout North America. It appears that the Yellowstone Park bison herd was the last free-ranging bison herd in the United States, the only place where bison were not extirpated in the United States. Yellowstone Park bison herd descended from a remnant population of 23 individual bison that survived the mass slaughter of the 19th century by hiding out in the Pelican Valley of Yellowstone Park, thank goodness. Out of 23, so we now have out of the 23, about 5,000 individuals? Yes, about 5,000 individuals in 2016. Thank goodness. What can I tell you? Out of the 25 million, there was once there. Now, out of the mass slaughter of the 19th century. To assist in the species revival in 1896, the United States government purchased 1 bull and 7 cows from the Lincoln Park Zoo's bison herd for Yellowstone. 1 bull and 7 cows. In 1902, a captive herd of 21 Goodnight Plains bison was introduced to the park, then moved to the Lamar Valley and managed as livestock until the 1960s, when a policy of natural regulation was adopted in the park. The American bison live in river valleys and on the prairies and plains. Their habitat typically is open or semi-open grasslands, as well as sagebrush, semi-arid lands and scrublands. Some lightly wooded areas are also known historically to have supported bison. They will also graze in hilly or mountainous areas where the slopes are not steep. Though bison are not particularly known as high-altitude animals, members of the Yellowstone Park bison herd are frequently found at elevations above 8,000 feet, and a herd started with founder animals from Yellowstone, the Henry Mountains bison herds found on the plains around the Henry Mountains in Utah, as well as in mountain valleys of Henry Mountains to an altitude of 10,000 feet. Now, they have had problems with brucellosis, which is a contagious zoonosis caused by ingestion of unpasteurized milk or undercooked meat from infected animals, or close contact with their secretions. Brucellosis occurs naturally in the Yellowstone bison herd, and the normal winter migrations of bison outside of the park. So this is maybe perhaps it was a normal migration because they ran off 10 days before. So there must have been some kind of a tremor or low frequency tremor that they were able to feel or even hear before the major 4.8 quake took place. That's what I believe. Because there's a lot of quakes happening in Yellowstone daily that are recorded or maybe not recorded, the low frequency for example, and they're not reported. So that's a fact, we know that. So it doesn't mean that they couldn't have heard something that was even recorded. So, but regularly though, during the winter, they do migrate, and the normal winter migrations of bison outside of the park raise concerns that this contagious animal disease of brucellosis infect bison, that infected this bison may infect regular cattle. So the United States government has programs to eradicate brucellosis in the domestic livestock of the cattle. Since 1934, an estimated $3.5 billion in federal, state, and private funds had been spent on brucellosis eradication in domestic livestock. And over the years, the National Park Service and states bordering the park of Yellowstone have implemented various plans to limit exposure of the Yellowstone bison to cattle herds outside the park. Efforts include hunting. So when they leave the park, they could be hunted down. Efforts include hunting, hazing bison pack into the park, vaccinations, and exporting excess bison to other locations. The most current effects are being considered by the Interagency Bison Management Plan, which is a cooperative multi-agency effort that guides the management of bison and brucellosis in and around Yellowstone National Park. The National Park Service, USDA Forest Service, USDA Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, Montana Department of Livestock, and Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Park adopted the first plan in the year 2000. And since 2009, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, the Intertribal Buffalo Council, and the Nez Perce tribe have participated in the planning. And the plan is named at maintaining a wild, free-ranging bison population, reducing the risk of brucellosis transmission from bison to the cattle, manage bison that leave Yellowstone National Park and enter the state of Montana, maintain Montana's brucellosis-free status for domestic livestock. Now, the Yellowstone Park bison herd is considered to be genetically pure. That means that there is no evidence of significant hybridization between bison and cattle. Officially, the American buffalo, quote-unquote, is classified by the U.S. government as a type of cattle, and the government allows private herds to be managed as such. And we know that I know that it's good meat. I've never tasted it, but I've heard others who have had it that it's excellent meat. And we have buffalo herds and buffalo farming in many countries outside of the United States. They've bought buffalo and have buffalo farms, buffalo herds for that reason, to of course sell buffalo meat. So so this the reflection of the characteristics that bison share with cattle. The American bison, the bison is not only a separate species, but actually is a separate genus from domestic cattle, which is called Bos primigenius. It certainly has a lot of genetic compatibility with the latter, and American bison can interbreed freely with the cattle. Also, when they do interbreed, the crossbreeds tend to look very much like purebred bison. So appearance is completely unreliable in the means of determining what is a purebred bison and what is a crossbreed with cattle. Many ranchers have deliberately crossbred their cattle with bison, and it would also be expected that there could be some natural hybridization in areas where cattle and bison occur in the same range. Since cattle and bison eat similar food and tolerate similar conditions, they've often been in the same range together in the past, and opportunity for crossbreeding may sometimes have been common. Recently, tests were developed to determine the source of mitochondrial DNA in cattle and bison. It was found that most private buffalo herds were actually crossbred with cattle anyway. And even most state and federal buffalo herds had some cattle DNA. With the advent of a nuclear microsatellite DNA testing, the number of herds that identified to contain cattle genes has increased. Though approximately 500,000 bison exist on private ranches and in public herds, some people estimate that perhaps only 15,000, 25,000 of these are pure rather than bison-cattle hybrids. DNA from domestic cattle, Bos taurus, has been detected in nearly all bison herds except examined to date. Significant public bison herds that do not appear to have hybridized domestic cattle genes are the Yellowstone Park bison herd, the Henry Mountain bison herd, which was started with bison taken from Yellowstone Park, the Wind Cave bison herd, and the Wood Buffalo National Park bison herd, and subsidiary herds descending from it in Canada. Now for the future, the bison at Yellowstone National Park have become the foundation animals for many other bison herds throughout the United States, such as the Henry Mountains bison herd and partially the Wind Cave bison herd, and many groups in the United States and Canada are making efforts to return bison to much of their previous natural range. Some large tracts of open range and natural habitat have been purchased by private individuals or groups to prepare for bison reintroduction. And currently, some state and national parks have habitat for bison, but most of these already have bison present. They're beautiful animals, aren't they? Beautiful animals. And they must have fed so many generations of Native American Indians. Amazing. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.